Hello, everybody, and welcome to CLCI Live.
Yes, welcome.
Before we start, we want to just mention, be sure to like, subscribe, share, comment, especially comment. We love to interact with our audience, answer your guys' questions.
Yay.
It's what keeps us going throughout the live, keeps us on our toes. Today, we're talking about emotion 101. Brooke just disappeared, and now she's back. There she is.
I don't know what just happened.
We're discussing emotion 101 is being content enough. Not being content, being content. And is it enough for you as a coach? And is it enough for your clients?
Thank you for the clarification on content versus content.
I read it wrong earlier, and I don't want our viewers and audience to make the same mistake.
Wait, didn't you suggest this topic? I thought you were the one that suggested this topic.
I suggested a lot of topics that I forget very quickly. So here we are. I'll take credit for this topic if it goes well. Okay, well, this seems like a yes or no question, though. Is being content enough? Jen?
Enough for what?
That's not a yes or no answer. Brooke, yes or no? Is being content enough?
I don't know.
Okay, that's also not a yes or no question or answer. Lisa?
Mostly.
That's all right. We failed all three of the yes or no question segment. So it depends then.
Yeah, we need context here. Come on.
Content about my life, about the state that I exist in.
Okay, so that's weird. Can we talk about that for a second?
Yeah.
Because I don't think of for me, contented, I've never said I'm content. It feels like something that happens without my control. I'm content, but it doesn't feel like something that I work for, or something that is an action or a verb for me. It feels more like it just sort of happens by accident, or it's you know what I mean? For me,
I think contentment's like an evaluation. Like you sort of evaluate the state that something is in, either the state of your life or the state of a portion of your life. You evaluate it and you say, oh, I'm content with this, or I'm not content with this. But yeah, it seems to me it's like you don't. I mean, you probably do, and we'll probably discuss the ways in which you do have control over the contentment in your life.
Yeah, I'm actually the opposite. That's so interesting. So I feel like I consciously am deciding all the time when something is enough and when I'm content, and I'm noticing it, and I'm noticing if I have an urge for more, and I'm acknowledging that urge can be present for more, and I'm content. I don't know. I think more I don't know, more awareness of that I'm actively choosing to notice that I'm content.
You're being active in your choice to notice that you're content, but is your contentment in your control or not?
Sometimes it is. I think so. Because sometimes I think it's literally about acknowledging that whatever it is enough, and then having gratitude. Even if it's not perfect or ideal, or there's, some big major consequence or flaw, if there's something to still, be content with, I will try to find it.
Why does gratitude fit into that? Can you say that something is enough and then also just not really be on either side of the gratitude spectrum? You're just whatever about it.
Can something be enough without gratitude?
Yeah. Or is that a necessary component for you to feel contentment?
I've never thought about that.
You're welcome.
Can I be content without gratitude? I'm leaning towards no. I'm leaning towards it. Just gratitude is a part of it for me. It's part of the contentment. It's part of the equation. It's an acknowledgement of what is, and it's an acknowledgement of it being enough, which to me is, I don't know, that involves gratitude.
Brooke, you're muted.
Are we defining contentment like
No.
right now? Okay, because I think maybe we should, because I want to, as we're sharing, I think I sometimes mix up contented, being content, with complacent.
I have notes just set aside for that, and
Okay.
I thought we would hit that a little bit later.
Okay.
Can we, but on that train of thought, can we first make a distinction between contentment and happiness?
I feel like happiness is more of an elevated, can be more of an elevated state, but I think that they don't have to be different. I think I can be happy and content. I'm often probably happy and content. Like, I think they go kind of hand in hand, but I think maybe the distinction might come from this feeling of like being elated and like overstimulated happy, like that, like more of that, like, you know, excitement happy feeling, versus like a more like neutrally resonating consistent happiness would be what I associate with contentment, if that makes sense.
So you're saying that contentment is like more of a long-term state of being, whereas happiness is more of a short burst of elevated contentment?
I would say, yeah, that's kind of, but I don't think that, like, you have to be, I think that that's like why, like, people, you know, I'm chasing happiness, that kind of cycle that can happen and can be dangerous. I think that that's chasing this like elevated feeling, you know, whereas you can be happy in a state of contentedness. I know some people would argue otherwise, but for me, that's how I see it. Like, if you see like emotions, you know, on a scale of like this, like positive feeling emotion versus these sort of negative feeling emotions, happiness is sort of here, sadness is here, but contentedness is on the upper side, but maybe not the top of that scale.
I don't think contentment is like, I think it's its own axis. It's not on the spectrum of sadness to happiness, because I can imagine scenarios where someone is sad, but they're content as well. They're content with that sadness. Or
tell me a scenario.
Negative feeling. Just like, you know, anytime there's like a goodbye or farewell, or like a transition to like a state, like you feel sad that something is ending, but you're content and you understand that like this is a good thing, or you know, you just are content with the fact that things have to come to an end.
Sometimes you might need that contentedness to be okay with that sadness.
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't, it's like, I'm trying to put into words a visualization, but like you've got the XY axis, or the X axis of sadness to happiness. You also have the Y axis of contentness to discontentness. So you can be discontent and unhappy, in which case you'll probably work to change the situation very quickly.
And I'm not even going to say that there's only two axes, really, right? Like,
I'm just adding an axis on. We can add a Z axis.
It's a
later.
3D map, really.
It's as many dimensions as you need it to be to fit your narrative. And I'm saying
5D for some, you know, you never know.
And they're probably more emotionally evolved than I am. But for now, we're talking about unhappiness and discontent versus unhappiness and content. So what I described in my example, where you're sad about a transition or a passing or an ending, but you're content, you're satisfied, you're not going to change the situation. Now I'm thinking, what does happiness and discontent look like?
What's interesting too is like, it's when I just Google really quick content, what is the definition of content? The answer you get is in a state of peaceful happiness.
Yes. On Byron Katie's like feelings list, I like to use that because she categorizes it into different feelings. Content is under peaceful, and happy is its
I would
own
agree.
category, and it has like a whole bunch of different descriptions of happy.
I would totally agree that it would fall like under peaceful for me. Like it would.
Yeah.
There is like a feeling of peace
Yeah.
when I hear content.
Right. Totally.
What do we think about that complacency piece of contentedness? People would argue that they don't want. I had somebody, we were in a discussion. They felt if they were content, they were going to be in complacency versus still moving forward towards growth.
I think the difference is with contentness, you're satisfied and you don't see a reason to, it's like it's enough. You're happy with the way things are.
But I don't even know the word. Hold on. I'm not going to say that it's enough is necessarily why does that have to come into the play? Because I can be content and still be inspired to learn more, inspired to grow, and I can be content along that whole process. I think I am. I think I'm in that state, but that I'm still like going out and learning new things, learning how to free dive, trying to expand that, you know what I mean? And I'm still growing in my state of contentedness, but it's not that I'm like motivated by this feeling of negativity, if that makes sense. I'm not negatively motivated in my state when I'm being motivated and content, I guess, if that makes sense.
I don't understand I don't understand the word complacency. I just realized that. Like I've been using it my whole life as if it meant like I was unhappy or dissatisfied with my current state or whatever I was doing or however I was being, like that it was dissatisfaction. And I'm looking it up and it says similar words are self-satisfied, pleased with oneself, proud of oneself, self-approving. So I am learning that I don't know the definition of complacent.
Well, I mean, I think it's related to both sort of definitions, the way you were using it and what you just read. But it's not in the sense that you're dissatisfied. It's like, it's good enough. I'm not happy with what the state of affairs is, but I don't see a good reason to change it. I'll just continue.
I mean, okay, apathetic is a synonym to it, which is interesting. But like it says marked by self-satisfaction, especially when accompanied by unawareness of actual dangers or deficiencies. That I think this is Merriam-Webster's definition, and that kind of explains some things. So it's marked by self-satisfaction, especially when accompanied by unawareness or actual danger. So like, I think a good example is that frog that's in a pot of slowly heating water, right? They're fine and they're content and complacent maybe because they are unaware of the dangers that are happening. Even they're unaware that it's going to end up boiling them to death, but they're content to sit in that water as it heats up, and so they might be self-satisfied. They might be okay with where they're at, but there's this unaware of danger or, deficiency going on that is actually hurting them or damaging them in some way.
Yeah, that's I think that works, that metaphor for sure.
Anthony,
Lisa, what are your thoughts?
Deep thought.
Yeah, who are you talking?
No, go on, Lisa.
I was just considering when I use the word complacency, it just really had more to do with laziness, and I was trying to think about the metaphor or the story metaphor that you just provided. Is that part of it? I don't think always. I mean, I don't think always is complacency danger related, but I think it definitely could be. It's unaware. It feels ego driven to me, and that's the additional piece I was thinking about. Does that really fit into this space? Is it ego driven, or is it naivete concepts? Because with the frog and I'm like, poor frog, the frog in the pan, I'm like, that frog was very naive to think that the water's just heating up and not being, self-aware of the dangers around him. And notice I said him.
I do that. I make animals eat usually.
That's funny. Anyway, so I was just going through that in my head as I was sitting here listening. I think there's a lot of things to consider about those word choices, and yet I think they're all very similar in that complacency description that we've all provided.
This is really helping me to understand that if a client uses any of these words, we better check in and see what the hell they mean. Because it's probably not what I'm thinking.
True. What was the one we were doing last week? It was kind of this similar idea. We thought one way and it was actually something different. But I think that's often true. Mm-hmm.
I think a good word for it is unconcerned, right? That's for me, like a good word. Like, I'm unconcerned about it. I think there's less judgment put on that state of like saying, well, I'm unconcerned. That unconcernedness can be good or bad, right? It can result, it can go either way. So I feel like that might be an easier way, a less murky way to use the word complacent. Anthony, you said you'd written stuff out about complacency. What had you written out?
Oh, we pretty much covered it.
Okay.
Basically about it can be negatively motivated or just like a unwarranted sense of self-satisfaction where you're not growing and you're not being proactive about a situation. I don't know. For some reason, I was thinking about our scuba diving experience and how I can be content with my rate of experience and growth and how I am on the dives. But I should not be complacent because complacency could kill me if I'm not vigilant and aware and constantly trying to learn new things and how to act in different situations. Whereas complacency in something could lead to, I don't know, it's like resting on your laurels when the world is changing around you and events and situations are changing. And if you're not adapting, then you're going to be left behind. And that's what I think of when I think of complacency. You're not taking an active role in whatever's going on. Whereas contentment, you are. You have an active role and you're owning the you're owning your role in the situation that you created for yourself.
So with complacency, there's like an intentionality behind.
There's a lack of intentionality.
Where you are. Okay.
Yes, because you could actively push against, people trying to change you or people giving you maybe critique or advice or actively ignoring the warning signs that maybe you should adjust what you're doing. But you're complacent, and for whatever reason you're being complacent, maybe you're just lazy, or maybe you don't think that you could achieve anything better, or it might be too much work to try to get those results. That seems to me all complacency. And it could have a degree of self-satisfaction or not. I don't really agree.
Complacency, Ken?
Yeah, complacency. I'm satisfied where I'm at. I don't really want to change, even though really you should probably change your behavior. I've known people in my own life who've I don't know, I would say like family members or people I used to be friends with who were had bad drinking habits or gambling habits. Here's a good example. Working at a casino, you see a lot of people who are complacent with having a gambling addiction. And they don't really see a reason why they need to change or achieve anything or do anything better with their time. And they might be happy when they win big, and they might be really unhappy when they lose, but that doesn't matter because they're complacent and they're going to show up to the casino the next day no matter what. So that would be a good definition of complacency. Yes, whoever typed that out, complacency has an element of ignorance and denial, which is kind of hard because you might feel like you're content when you might actually be complacent, and the only thing that could indicate that is maybe time, because hindsight's, I guess, 2020, and your feelings about that might change over time, or you might. I don't know if you can feel complacent and then later on realize that you were content with the situation. I think that evolves into contentment.
So circling back to how does this play into us as coaches and our clients, this concept of contentment, happiness, complacency, all of these kind of things?
I think, from my experience, my limited experience coaching people, clients tend to confuse happiness with contentment, and they don't realize that they're mixing them up in the moment. For example, like if you achieve a lot of success in your career, but you're not happy. You've done all these wonderful things. You've achieved XYZ. You hit all your goals, and you feel like it's not enough. And you don't understand in that current moment as to what you can do to make yourself feel happy, when really they're wanting to feel content. So that's one way I see it in clients, is that they confuse the two and then wonder why they are not feeling the way they want to feel.
Well, it definitely is a coachable moment, given the opportunity that they're sharing with those details of what all of that means. I'm probably not going to correct their vocabulary, but just understand their utilization of it. Because I do think we all have attachments to what our understanding of a word is. I'm thinking of someone I mentioned earlier, I was working with, and their contentment really to them was complacency. And they never wanted to be content because they felt they would fall into complacency. And so I'm never going to use that word contentment with that client. So it's being aware of their language, how they use their vocabulary, that will best assist them in asking, where the growth is from there.
Honestly, for me, in my experience, it's not really, it's about what the client wants to work on, right? It's who am I to judge where they're at and what they are content and complacent with. That's not mine. So I mean, whatever they bring to the table is really what I'm doing the work on with them. And if, I'm not going to dig in and say, hey, oh, by the way, looks like you're avoiding this. I think you could do some work. No. They're the expert. They're the authority.
Well, when you just said it looks like you're avoiding this, I mean, I might ask into moments where they are expressing a sense of like, I'm happy with this, but they're not.
Yeah, like I've seen this as a sense of frustration that they can't really articulate, but they're frustrated with, like, something doesn't feel right to them, and then that causes you as the coach to ask more into that.
Well, yeah, and it's not even that. Is I've had clients who, I've had this recently where they're like, they'll do something. I'm like, okay, so how does it feel? Did we figure it out? Did we, is this where you want to be? And they'll go, yeah. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, at that point, they're telling me that they're content or happy, but I'm going to go, what? I'm not believing you right now. Like, tell me, or I'm going to ask into, hey, tell me what that like
Mhm.
sigh was about, that
Yeah.
tone was about, what that eye roll was about. Like,
Yeah.
talk to me about what's going on. And I'm not making a judgment. I'm just asking into this moment when their body language or their tone doesn't match what they're
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
And I've been surprised with the answer in both ways. I've been surprised with the answer, and the client was just having a moment where they're like, well, they'll go, I'm just realizing that I've wanted to do this for, 6 months, and I should have been doing it, and I haven't been doing it. And so at that point, what am I hearing? I'm hearing that, yes, we've arrived at the answer, and my client is kind of being hard on themselves for not arriving to it sooner. That's what I'm learning in that moment. I'm not going to correct them one way or the other. That's their lesson to learn.
Mhm.
But I'm hearing, okay, they are in fact happy. But then I've also had it be a moment where it's a but will come out, a but something, something, something. And when that happens, I'm learning that maybe they aren't really happy. Maybe they aren't really content with, or fully content with the solution that they have come up with, or what they're feeling. And I mean, I'm going to ask into that emotion, and because we're complicated people, I don't think that we can feel content, like Anthony said, and a lot of other things at the same time. So them responding like they aren't content can mean a lot of things. It might mean that they are content, but they are something else. Or there's a lot of things going in on there. But I will definitely, when I ask into those moments where, have we done the work here? Are we satisfied with this answer? Did we figure this out? Have we arrived at the conclusion? When I'm asking into those questions, those answers are when I'm going to, and how they answer will tell me if they are in fact content, if they are in fact happy, and how they respond will be really critical in that moment for me.
Yeah.
To find
If
out our job, right?
If their energy is not matching that, yes, always, that's a moment. That's an important moment. And it's important for the client to have awareness of that. So to let that go is a miss, in my opinion. I think it's a coach's job to pick up on that when the energy doesn't match the language.
Because a lot of the times your client's going to share what the correct answer is, as if it's on a test. They have to tell you what the correct answer is, even though that's not where they are or really what they want. So recognizing that is beneficial. Yeah.
I had a moment kind of with the client, it was funny, where she was being critical with herself about something a habit she had. It was, like a social media habit where when she was feeling overwhelmed, she would go onto social media and she would scroll through stuff. And she was making a judgment about it. And I didn't buy her judgment. I didn't necessarily believe the judgment she was making. She was like, and I know it's bad, but she kind of like rolled her eyes. And I was like, is it bad?
Yep.
And she was like, well, my partner would tell me it's bad. And I know there's things that say it's bad, but a lot of times I get some inspiration from, you know what I mean? She actually had like a different opinion about it. There was she was actually more happy and content with what she was doing, but she was giving me the answer that she thought was right. She was giving me the answer that is supposed to be right for her, and it's not necessarily right for her. Right. So, oh no, am I?
Maybe it's just me.
Yeah, not me.
No,
Okay.
she's not glitchy.
Okay, good.
So like that is, I mean, again, I think that this feeling of contented and happiness, I don't know, with your experience with clients, my clients usually at the end of the session aren't necessarily leaving like clicking their heels happy, right? They're usually leaving because they've learned something, they've experienced something, there's been some kind of something that has happened, and they're determined. They might be excited, but they're also like processing a lot of things that are going on and stuff like that. And so I would also say, as a coach, don't be offended if your client is leaving in like a thoughtful place, or in a place that maybe to you doesn't read as like fully content or fully happy or is psyched, or you know what I mean? They might be leaving in a lot of different mental states. And I think for you as a coach, it's important for you not to get hung up on how happy, making your client happy, because that may not be your job, if that makes sense.
Totally. Yeah. I think there's a lot of new coaches that expect to have those moments where excitement occurs, that light bulb moment. And really, a lot of the times that in between your sessions is the biggest work, that thoughtful place that you described. Yeah, absolutely.
So we should aim to leave our clients feeling content with our coaching sessions rather than happy.
I'm not aiming to do anything other than provide the service that I've been trained to do. It's their job to decide how they want to leave.
I think I'm just aiming for us to get to whatever goal we set at the beginning, whatever that is, and however it turns out, because it does sometimes flex, right? It's funny. There's been plenty of times in the last few sessions I've done where I'm like, those moments where I'm like, okay, I know we're following the goal. I can see how it's connected, but is this actually what they want? But I'm realizing now that's like a deviation between like what my process is versus what their process is, and like acknowledging that and knowing that and understanding that. But the goal, I mean, yes, my goal is I'm going to feel content if at the end of that session, when I circle back to what our original contract was, that session contract, my client goes and I ask, okay, have we achieved what we needed to achieve? Have we gotten there? How do you feel about what we've done with regard to your original goal? I'll feel content as a coach if they say, yeah, no, I feel like I've gotten what I needed from that. You know, I feel like I've, for sure. There's been lots of times though where there's little things that I would love to dive deeper into, but I would just keep my mouth shut and I'm like, no, gotta stay focused, because that'll be another 30-40 minute session. And so that's always a moment where I'm like, it almost feels like, okay, am I letting these, and maybe this is about my contentedness as a coach, is being okay with letting some things fly, right? In order to keep the session focused.
I think that's the art. That's the art piece of it, is like when the coach makes those type of critical decisions that can either keep the coaching on track according to how it's supposed to be, right? Or if they're gonna, kind of go off road for a minute and not really know how that's gonna turn out. I mean, I don't judge it either way. I've seen fantastic coaching where they keep them on the rails, and also where you go off road and end up in an absolutely totally different place, and it's super impactful for the client.
I'll say, I off-road a little almost every session, but it's like a matter of knowing like how far off course I'm going to let it go, and like when to ask. Like I'm trying to listen to that critical ask moment when it's still relating to the end goal and not like a periphery like thought process that doesn't really relate to what the bigger goal. It's like, I think that's what my cue is to ask, is like, okay, is this helping with what we're working on? Or is this like something that's completely left field and it's not, what we're working on?
But sometimes left field is a good place to operate from, because you as a coach will garner all kinds of different information. So it may or may not, I mean, if we're sticking to the ICF rules, yes, we have to have the start, we have to have the finish, we have to have the in-between. But if we just do a natural session, sometimes that off-roading can lead to a whole different dynamic that still in some fashion will come back to what the focus is, but it might not be exactly start to finish in one session.
Yeah. So it's like having the courage to go off road and not know if you'll be able to get back on track. And then sometimes it's like magical, like, oh my gosh, you somehow got right back onto it. Those moments are so fun because it was like, thank you for trusting yourself to go that far off with that client, because it really paid off.
and I'll say like it, and relating in this space, and I'm not sure how far off-roading we've gone on this subject right now. With
But it's made it a whole lot more fun.
within that space too, when I do let some of the things fly by, right? It's a reminder to me though that well, in the like in future sessions, there's going to be more opportunity, right? There's going to be that I know that I can still help here, if that makes sense. Like I know that there are still moments and things I can ask into in a future session that maybe it's not the right time right now, that when it comes up again, I'll have that opportunity again. And that like is something that is validating, I guess, for me as a coach to know I can help here. Like there is a place, a way for me to help here. And I think that that's really critical. I had a client, and I don't know if it's that it's going to take longer because he's a guy, that I was like, I just don't know if I can help here. I'm just not sure, because like, just like, I'm not getting those moments aren't even coming up. And it was just interesting for me. So
what is that supposed to mean?
Yeah.
I just didn't know if I could help. You know, like
Us fellas are just helpless.
No, I just think I think it's going to take longer to crack the shell is really what it is. In that case.
Can you be content with it if it never happens?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, that of course I can, because this isn't it's not my coaching session, right? It's not my work. So I'm content with whatever they want to show up and do, and whenever they want to end it. That's okay with me, right? That's good. They got what they needed. They didn't get what they needed. It's really up to them. So that's the beautiful thing about coaching. That's why I don't like doing marketing as much in 100 different places anymore, because it's like having responsibility to do the work and for the success and failures of in a ton of different places with just this constant sensation of stress. And coaching is such like a breath of fresh air because my work is in that session, and then outside of it, it's not. So now I'm content. And when doing marketing, I was constantly stressed. So definitely a big difference there. Yeah.
So how do we take our conversation back on track?
Well, we kind of circled back to contentment, and in coaching, what contentment is for us as a coach. How about just in our normal everyday life? When do you know you're content? Do you think about it?
It's that peaceful feeling.
Yeah.
I think about it a lot, and I think it's because it is a big part of my relationship with food and my body. I'm always checking in to acknowledge contentment. I'm always checking in to acknowledge this is enough. This is enough. You're good. This is great. You can relax. This is enough. That's just a way of being for me, is acknowledging when something is enough and feeling really good of finding that, because I used to not live like that. Nothing was ever enough for a long time.
And how did you make this switch? How did each of you make a switch from what? From being complacent? I don't even know that that's necessarily malcontent, maybe.
I mean, for me, I was just chasing things that were not achievable. Like I was chasing irrational things. I was chasing things that had no, I had no capability or ability to achieve them. Or if I even did, what it would cost would be insane. And so a lot of it is just recognizing like, okay, that's not serving me. And then, okay, well, what is enough? Let's redefine what, and we're not going to chase. We're just going to acknowledge the stuff that already exists. Again, that's the gratitude piece. How much do I already have that is enough? That's really where I started building a foundation for contentment. And I literally went from feeling discontent 99% of the time in my life to, I mean, of course there's other things involved, I've had a major career change. Sure, that helps. I'm like at an amazing place with amazing people doing amazing things. Like that, of course, helps. But just my overall mindset about acknowledgement of when something is enough it's just deepened within the past few years.
So this feeling of enough keeps coming up, and I just can I ask into like, what is the importance of like enough? Like, because part of me has this feeling of like I want to rebel against the word enough on some level. Like,
I think
if somebody told to me that's enough, you've had enough, I'd be like, how do you know? And they might be very well be right?
I think it's telling yourself that it's enough, for one, so you're coming up with that determination.
Yes.
And two,
yes.
knowing, and like when you know something is enough and you're content, you know that adding more is going to have it's either it will have negative returns, like
Yes.
having more will actually be more harmful for you rather than helpful, or it'll plateau and the effort to get more is not worth it.
Yes.
I don't know.
The point
I'm
of
thinking,
diminishing returns.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's the word I was thinking of. It's going to have diminishing returns when you try to look for more and more.
Yes.
So, but enough is also based on your experience. So someone who doesn't have experience, would they know enough?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. It certainly took me a while.
That's probably like a little bit of the
out.
curse of knowledge, where it's like once your awareness expands to where like, oh, you could have more or you could achieve more, then discontentment might settle in.
And
in this process,
I think the reason I rebel against the word a little is because it feels finite to me. So I think I have to remind myself that I can adjust the point of enough, right? I can raise the enough point and I can lower the enough point to my liking. So I can decide at which point I want to raise that enough level up a little, and I'm going to decide at which point I can drop that enough level down a little. And I think about it like when it comes to me and my workouts, like in the way I work out, because I can work out sometimes 4 hours a day. Like today will be a 4-hour workout day for me because I teach. But yesterday I didn't work out at all because I had to rest my body. Like I had to physically rest my body because if I had, it would have been too much for me. Like I would have felt horrible doing what I have to do today. I wouldn't have been capable of doing what I'm doing today. But there can always be parts of my brain that like are like, should you be? Are you doing enough? Is that enough for you? Are you gonna, you know what I mean? And I have to ask myself, but I have to realize that bar for enough can move a little and adjust based on whatever I need to adjust it to. So there'll be a day where, I want to go and I want to do 2 classes and that'll be enough. There'll be days where I want to go and I want to do 2 classes and I'm going to go diving, and that's going to be a lot. And I'll be done and toast after that. And probably the next day I won't want to do anything. And that's okay in each of those situations. And I think that's where the only thing that rebels against that word enough for me is that I want it to be fluid. And situational. I
totally relate to that. And I was thinking about like, is it finite for me? No, it's definitely not. It's like an acknowledgement of like, just for example, like I can look in the mirror sometimes and I can go, not the best, or I can go, not bad. Either way, I allow it to be enough. Like no matter what my reaction is, I'm like, this is enough for today. Like just allowing myself to just be, I allow so much fluidness in my state of enoughness for sure. Like sometimes, yeah, it's enough to just be.
It's funny. I agree. Like I relate to that because especially when you teach in a studio, you're surrounded by mirrors and you have to look at yourself. Like you're forced for hours at a time to be looking at yourself in a mirror. But I'll sometimes turn around and look at other people. But all of the things go through your head. And like right before my period, everything's bloated, everything's swollen. pardon my French, or pardon my sharing, whatever it is. And I can be really critical of myself in those times. And I really was recently, but then I had this moment, and it was like right after a class, I was putting stuff away, and I was like, you know what? Like, having like a little bit of a belly pooch and having like that thing going and everything going on, that's feminine, and it's okay. Like, you're okay. You're still beautiful. You're still fine. It's okay. Like, you're allowed. That doesn't make you hideous and scary, or, you know, whatever it is. But it was like this moment where I was like, just sort of this acceptance of like, no, that's still beautiful. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I accepted it and was okay. And like, it was just a very like strong and powerful moment for where I just felt good. I felt like, okay, that's good. That's good. This is enough, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to be beating yourself up. You're good. And that was really nice. Yeah. So
yeah. Anthony, you have those moments where you look in the mirror when you're just bloated and swollen, and you know.
No, absolutely. I was gonna say I agree with you, Brooke, but I'm struggling to not let the evil thoughts in me just take over and say something really stupid and funny.
What is that?
Yes, yeah, I'm just gonna say yes. I agree to whatever you said, Queen. You're and all that.
You're channeling Andy right now.
Yes, but I'm trying not to be an evil dickhead for my own enjoyment.
Just to be a little smart mouth.
Yeah, just to be a little smart mouth. Final thoughts. We're getting close to the end on contentment.
It's an interesting topic.
Yeah. I have a tendency to be in contentment. I don't have high happiness or low sadness. I tend to be pretty much, and I used to think that I was missing out on not having those highs. But when I see them on others, I go, not so much. Because if you got the high, then you got the low. And that's the one I don't want to have. So being in content, I think I've gotten into complacency now and again. But for the most part, I think sometimes I need that space to be complacent, and then go back into growth moments.
You know, as you're sharing, you're talking about that resonating between like high and low and then more middle. And I definitely have been somebody that I grew up around bipolar. Like, that was and so that's how I was trained and learned to exist in these big swings, and thought that was normal. And I had ADHD and I was undiagnosed. And so I had my own emotional things going on and all these, but now that I've been diagnosed and I've gotten the medication I need and I've gotten life sort of figured out and everything, I resonate in here, and I don't at all miss the highs and lows, because you know what I never really had in the highs and lows was peace. Because I might be really excited, but it was like mania, and I might be really sad, but that is, you know, sad and depressed, and really, but there was never this sensation of just calm, relaxed, chill peace. It was always felt like just overwhelming, racing emotion, all these things. And now that I've found this sense of peace, I value it so much, and I never want to let it go. Right? Like, it's wonderful. So you weren't missing out on anything except for a lot of like craziness. But I never felt peaceful. I very rarely experienced a sensation of peace, and I really love that peace. That really brings back to me that definition of contentedness, which is a state of peaceful happiness. And I'm like, yeah, that for me brought it full circle.
I think I use the word content, I've just realized this, when I actually mean elated, because I've been thinking about when I say I'm so content right now, because that's actually a go-to phrase when I'm in a state of like complete ecstasy, like on a trip in a beautiful location, with, you know, the best people, with the best
on
food.
Ecstasy, maybe.
No drugs. and I'll say like I'm so content right now, and it's not contentment at all. It's literally just like pure joy. So yeah, this live has just shown me my language is all over the place with this topic, and it's just a reminder to make sure I'm checking in with my clients on all of their language.
Yeah. Tell your clients to watch their language.
Yes.
No saying the C word without meaning it.
What's the
Content.
C word?
Content.
Not content.
Not the other C word. That's
Anthony, your final
never mind.
thoughts?
I'm gonna
Anthony's
mind-
in a strange mood today.
Okay,
Yes.
that's where we end. That's where we end. See you next
Enough.
Tuesday.
Yeah, that's it. We'll see you guys next week. Are we still on emotions?
Are we still in emotion?
Yeah, we're still doing
April.
emotions.
We'll be on emotions through April.
Okay, we'll see you guys next week. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, comment, take our classes.
Before
you
we
can-
sign off,
Yeah.
to any of our alumni
Oh, right.
or anybody who wants to become an alumni before June, you don't have to be an alumni
Yeah.
now. You can take a class and then be an alumni by June, and then you can join in on our ACME, which stands for accredited
Alumni.
alumni. There we go. Alumni coach. Coach. What is the M? stand for?
Alumni Coaching Mastermind event.
There it is. Alumni coaching
The live
mastermind
event.
I was going for all the wrong words there. The tickets just went on sale last Friday, and they'll be $99 only, I think, through the end of April. I think they go up right at the beginning of May. So make sure that you get them now. It's also, if you're an alumni, the only chance to become one of our clients in the event. We're only picking from the people who apply and get that early bird ticket discount. I think we've already sold quite a few tickets. It will sell out, at least in our experience, it has. So please, please, please check us out and check out ACME if you haven't already. It's email. And if you don't know, if you can't find it, give us a call. Call the office.
Yeah.
We'll help you. And that's that for me.
Okay, we'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.
Okay,
Make sure you
bye.
like, subscribe, all of that good stuff.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next Tuesday at 4 p.m.